There is one thing that can be as dangerous as sharing your plans, and that is sharing good news, no matter whom you are sharing it with. I know most of you must have heard statements like this after sharing something very important and joyful with people. Must be nice, or I guess some people just get lucky, and it just breaks your heart. I know. I felt that sting too. That subtle shift in tone, that smile that doesn't quite reach the eyes. And if I'm being honest, I might have even done the same unfair thing to someone else without realizing it. This is exactly why I wanted to study the psychology behind this reaction. And when it comes to understanding uncomfortable human truths like these, no one explains it more sharply than Arthur Schopenhauer. So let's watch the video and learn what he has to say about why smart minds often choose silence over celebration. The first reason lies in a basic and uncomfortable truth about human nature. People often feel envious or even hostile toward those who succeed. Arthur Schopenhauer observes that envy is neither rare nor trivial. It is natural to man and at once a vice and a source of misery. Envy, he explains, is the shadow that wealth, talent, or happiness inevitably cast over human relationships. In his essay on the miseries of human existence, he points out that we become the envy of others simply by living better than they do. He writes, "Envy builds the wall between thee and me, thicker and stronger." This powerful image of a wall suggests that when one person's life improves, it often highlights another person's lack. And from that awareness, resentment is born. When you announce your success, someone else may begin to judge themselves more harshly. Schopenhauer explains that whenever a person rises through genius, beauty, strength, or even simple good fortune, many around him feel smaller by comparison. With painful clarity, he adds that intelligence or even genius cannot get on in the world without begging pardon for its existence because others become painfully aware of their own shortcomings. In simple terms, when you shine, you expose those who are more comfortable in the dark. This is not pessimism for its own sake. Schopenhauer grounds his thinking in psychology. He admits, and although it is a reprehensible feeling, still admits of some excuse and is in general a very human quality. Almost everyone feels a sting of jealousy when witnessing another's happiness. But there is a darker form of it. True envy consists in wishing harm upon the happier person. Once awakened, envy rarely shows its face openly. Schopenhauer warns, no form of hatred is so implacable as the hatred that comes from envy, and therefore we should always carefully refrain from doing anything to rouse it. In other words, the envious can be quietly dangerous, and wisdom lies in not provoking them at all. In The Vanity of Existence, he offers another vivid image. A successful person is like a tall pine standing on a windy hill. To stand out is to invite the storm. Quoting Horace, he writes, "The golden mean is best to live free from the squalor of a mean abode, and yet not be a mark for envy. It is the tall pine which is cry shaken by the wind, the highest summits that are struck in the storm, and the lofty towers that fall so heavily. Living modestly without attracting envy is golden. Becoming too visible invites misfortune. Envy often appears before we recognize it." Schopenhauer describes the hidden hatred that envious individuals carry. They may act like friends while secretly nurturing resentment. With great cunning, he writes, he, the envious man, will completely overlook the man whose brilliant qualities are gnawing at his heart, acting as if he does not exist, and on occasion will have even quite forgotten his existence. But this is only the beginning. From behind the scenes, the envious person attempts to deprive those advantages of any opportunity of showing themselves using ridicule, slander, or sabotage. In other words, they create ways to damage another's reputation or prevent success from being recognized. By openly celebrating your achievements, you may unknowingly hand them ammunition. Even when no direct attack comes, bitterness may still linger. Schopenhauer notes that envy moves incognito. It hides in strained silences and polite smiles that never reach the eyes. The person most eager to hear your good news might secretly be struggling with jealousy. He even remarks that this is the reason why pretty girls have no friends of their own sex, a striking example of how envy can turn companionship into rivalry. He cautions us not to mistake envy for fairness. One must lay envy bare and see it clearly because it is everywhere to be found. Sharing good news forces others to confront your advantage, which may awaken their hidden resentment and make you vulnerable to subtle hostility. If envy from others is one danger, another danger lies within ourselves. Speaking too soon about our happiness can quietly weaken it. Many wise thinkers, including Arthur Schopenhauer, understood that talking too much about success often reduces its sweetness. Schopenhauer clearly advises that silence is a matter of prudence and that it shows greater intelligence to remain quiet than to boast. In simple terms, it requires more wisdom to say nothing than to fill the air with praise of oneself. When we announce good news, we release a portion of our joy into the world, and what remains inside us feels smaller. There is also a psychological explanation for this. Modern research echoing ancient insight suggests that when people prematurely announce their goals, they often lose motivation to achieve them. The satisfaction of talking about success can replace the satisfaction of earning it. Schopenhauer hints at this idea in his own way. He reminds us that pleasure is fleeting, negative rather than positive, and that indulging in imagined happiness can draw us away from the calm state of painlessness, which he sees as true contentment. Put bluntly, once we begin to chatter about our good fortune, we may feel as if we have already accomplished something, so the true reward slips away. He warns against the visions of wishes fulfilled that seduce us to follow happiness and instead entangle us in disappointment. In other words, celebrating too soon is like chasing an illusion that fades the moment we grasp it. Even without philosophy, common sense supports this caution. The old proverb says, "Don't count your chickens before they hatch." As folklore explains, this saying reminds us that the game isn't over until it's over. Rejoicing too early risks inviting misfortune. The Bible offers a similar warning. Do not boast about tomorrow, for you do not know what a day may bring. It is better to let others praise you afterward than to praise yourself in advance. Behind this warning lies a deeper humility, something Schopenhauer, despite his pessimism, respected. He recognized how easily people become intoxicated by illusions of their own importance. Some wish to dazzle the world, but he suggests that such ambition brings inevitable trouble. Quoting Good's character, he writes, "To desire to get rid of an evil is a definite object, but to desire a better fortune than one has is blind folly. Excessive boasting then is vanity chasing vanity. It feeds envy, invites pain, and sets the stage for disappointment. The wiser person, by contrast, desires nothing but what he sees before him, keeping expectations modest and steady. In this balanced approach, the golden mean, he avoids unnecessary falls." Schopenhauer offers a memorable proverb, "A secret is in my custody if I keep it, but should it escape me, it is I who am the prisoner." Applied to good news, this means that as long as you guard your success, you remain in control. It is your possession, but once spoken, it belongs partly to the world. You may then become trapped by others' reactions, judgments, expectations, and questions. Instead of enjoying your happiness freely, you find yourself managing it as it will attract trouble. And this is what I will discuss in detail in the next chapter. Arthur Schopenhauer repeatedly warns that those who stand out often invite resistance. In comparing the aristocracies of intellect, wealth, and birth, he notes that each is surrounded by a host of envious persons, all eager to pull the exceptional individual back into obscurity. When someone truly excels, he observes, they will always be anxious to let you understand that you are no better than they. In trying to insult or patronize you, critics reveal their own uneasy awareness of your advantage. Simply put, the higher you rise, the harder some will try to drag you down. This pattern appears again and again in stories. Heroes attacked for their glory, inventors mocked for their brilliance, outsiders slandered for daring to succeed. Schopenhauer cautions that standing tall, even intellectually, provokes powerful reactions. Let's repeat the warning. It is the tall pine which is cry shaken by the wind, the lofty towers that fall so heavily. By publicly announcing your success, you may find that storms of gossip, criticism, or subtle sabotage strike you first. Sometimes the hostility is indirect. Some may choose to ignore you deliberately, treating your achievement with the utmost unconcern, as though it were nothing at all. Others might exaggerate praise for less significant accomplishments, hoping by comparison to shrink yours. In both cases, your quiet victory becomes a subject of tension rather than celebration. Even friends and colleagues may begin to behave differently. For this reason, Schopenhauer advises, give way neither to love nor to hate. Say nothing and believe nothing. It is a severe rule of worldly wisdom suggesting that speaking openly about success entangles you in the fragile web of others' pride, judgment, and insecurity. There is also a practical concern about expectations. The moment you announce, "I received a great new position," people expect flawless performance from you. Any mistake afterward appears larger than it truly is. If you remain silent, however, you can grow into your role naturally, learning, adjusting, and improving without unnecessary attention. The pressure to live up to public excitement can become a trap. Schopenhauer would warn that fate is often unkind to those who tempt it with premature celebration. On a broader level, his philosophy reflects a darker view of existence. He once remarked that our whole existence is something which had better not have been, suggesting that the world is rarely aligned with our happiness. In such a world, every action risks a reaction. A modest person who expects little avoids deep disappointment. A proud person who announces success may invite unforeseen consequences. Silence then becomes a quiet safeguard against both human hostility and life's unpredictability. Literature echoes this wisdom. In Homer's epic, when Odysseus returns home, he does not reveal himself immediately. He observes carefully, understanding that discovery at the wrong moment could cost him everything. Life is not mythology, but the lesson remains. Revealing victory without caution can end a story too soon. Let's discuss the deeper, more philosophical reason, one that concerns the very nature of happiness itself. Arthur Schopenhauer, true to his sober outlook, reminds us that joy is fragile and short-lived. In his careful reflections, he writes that our memory of joys and sorrows is always imperfect, and they become a matter of indifference to us as soon as they are over. This means that even for us, once the moment of triumph has passed, it slowly fades into the background. The excitement that urges us to announce our success is already beginning to evaporate. So why rush to give it away? By the time you finish telling others, much of what made it magical has already diminished. Schopenhauer suggests that turning happiness into words rarely strengthens it. On the contrary, it may weaken it. Once spoken aloud, an achievement becomes something to be examined, questioned, or doubted. Lived joy becomes mere thoughts. And in Schopenhauer's view, thoughts cannot recreate genuine feeling. The sweetness of the original experience drifts further away each time it is repeated. It is like leaving a fine wine exposed to air. Slowly it loses its flavor. Many traditions echo this wisdom. An old proverb warns, "Don't cry out your happiness too soon. The gods might be listening." Another ancient caution reminds us, "Do not boast about tomorrow." These sayings recognize how quickly circumstances can change. Schopenhauer believed that much of life is governed by unpredictable luck and chance. He even compares life to a sweet shop where delights often disappear before we have truly tasted them. If happiness is merely a temporary absence of pain, then loudly proclaiming it may cause it to fade even faster. There is another subtle truth. Most people are more concerned with their own lives than with yours. When you share good news, you ask them to pause and celebrate with you. But often their interest is brief. Even if listeners seem attentive, their minds quickly return to their own concerns. The warmth you hoped for may feel shallow or routine. In his counsels and maxims, Schopenhauer advises, "Do not tell a friend anything that you would conceal from an enemy." Even friends with good intentions may spread your news beyond your control. Once it is public, it no longer belongs solely to you. It becomes part of the world, open to opinion, comparison, and change. Behind all this lies Schopenhauer's broader vision of life. He famously writes that pain is positive, pleasure negative. And so let us end where wisdom often begins, with restraint. A secret is in my custody if I keep it. But should it escape me, it is I who am the prisoner.